Welcome. My name is Grandma Storm. I write stories for young adults. Today I'm reading chapters 91 through 95 in my book, The Book of Faith. The scent drove him insane. Memories of whipping and cursing filled his brain. The trail was strong. Starvation filled him with bloodlust. The trail led past a creek. He slaked his thirst. For the joy of freedom, he howled. The dogs ran to him. Then he went silent. He hunted the man he hated. In the black of night, he found him. This was he who beat him. This was he who whipped him. He tore off the blanket. The man swore. He pulled a knife and lunged. The man missed, but the hound did not. Teeth closed around a scrawny neck. Vertebrae snapped. Life left the man. The dogs tore into the carcass. He ate the liver. He went to a creek to drink. He wanted to go home. Home was uncertain. He thought of soft quilts that smelled like his girl. He would go there. Kerr did not hear it, but there was laughter. There was dark glee. A futures contract was paid in full. The darkness always collected. 92. Tirzah and Ashiel sat at the prow, their fingers touching. Sam stood at the tiller, guiding the flatboat. Faith sat by his feet. From the time Tirzah and Ashiel first entered the camp, Sam knew who they were, but he was a brown leather to them. He was ashamed. He could not bear to approach them. After Manson rescued them from the pit, and Sam stripped off their brown leather uniform, Ashiel was shocked to recognize a boy from his village. Sam told his story that night as they shared food at Manson's table. The journey over the Dog-Tooth Mountains reduced me to nothing. That was the way Dr. Luce liked all captives to arrive. They could be recreated according to his dictates. Dr. Luce decided I would serve the brown leathers. I was given food, clothing, shelter, and drilled. I was told what to do and when to do it. I was rewarded when I did the will of the officers. I saw others punished for the slightest insubordination. To live, I accepted the identity forced upon me. What Sam did not share was the downward spiral he endured in the ranks of the brown leathers. The heart of the village boy lingered and surfaced from time to time to give food to an old one or to give a kind word to a sad face. His kindness was always discreet. None of his superiors ever saw these breaches in their brown leather code, but he was never advanced. His stations of duty rambled down until he was signed to the camps. That was as low as he could go. When Sam refused to throw Tirzah in the pit, his fellow brown leathers did not hesitate to throw him in there. Now he was steering a flatboat down a river on a warm spring day. He smiled. Choosing death brought life. Faith looked up to him and asked, "Want an apple?" He nodded. She smiled and fetched an apple from a sack on the open deck. Handing it to him, she said, "Sam, I am glad you are with us." "Me too." The river widened before the boat. The country they passed through was empty of people, but full of trees laced in new leaves. Sunshine sparkled on the water. Manson said, when we come to a dam, we will stop, leave the boat, and go overland to the Nephilim, said Sam. What amazes me is that you, the littlest member of our party, are to be our guide. I have been that way twice. I am sure I can find it. The dam is by the mill that Pa worked. Right by it is my cottage. My mother is buried on the hill. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you miss your mother? I can only remember her a little. Faith thought of seeing her mother's eyes in the mirror in the Deer Queen's apartments. Then she remembered showing the Deer Queen the mirror. Despite the warm sun, she shuddered. I wonder if I will ever see my mother again, murmured Sam. I wish I could see Pa. All I seem to do is hike through the countryside when all I want to do is go home. Faith wondered if missing a mother was as sad as missing Pa. Then it was time for Sam to rest and Ashiel to take his place at the tiller. Dinner was cheese and apples. Faith sighed. She wanted to eat hot bread, dripping with melted butter. 3 days later, the flat boat arrived at the dam. Next to it stood the mill and the cottage. The boys were landing the boat on the eastern bank when they heard barking on the opposite shore. Standing on the bank, Faith saw Kerr hurl himself into the river. The great hound's head rose above the water as he swam for her. With a leap and a shake, the dog bounded for Faith. Thinking he needed to protect the little girl, Sam grabbed an axe to knock the great brute on the head. Ashiel stopped his arm in time. Kerr wriggled with absolute abandon, knocking Faith to the ground. The two rolled on the grass like puppies. Panting and laughing, they concluded their greetings. Standing, Faith was dismayed to see her clothes were now the color of dirt and dog. She was more dismayed to see her friend was so thin. She knew she would have another mouth to feed for the trip. She reached in a pocket, unwrapped a hunk of cheese, and offered it to Kerr. With one gulp, the cheese disappeared. Kerr turned adoring eyes to his girl. Kerr will come with us, decided Faith aloud. Of course, we can't leave him, agreed Ashiel, but feeding such an animal was not in the plan. We could take the boat to the cottage, suggested Faith. Maybe I can find some more stores. There should still be sacks of grain. We can always boil grain with water and a little salt. It will make us hungry for Nicander's good cooking. Despite Manson's order to hurry, they all agreed it had to be done. As Sam shoved the flatboat back into the river, Ashiel noticed smoke rising from the cottage chimney. He was about to order Sam to steer back when a kind-faced woman opened the cottage door. Faith, come in and bring your friends. Supper is ready. Mother! Miracles are happening, murmured Tirzah. 93. I am having nasty bad dreams, and it is all your fault. I can't get a wink of sleep. Look at my eyes. They are all baggy and red. I look terrible. Dr. Luce gazed upon the dear queen. He was practiced and had a strong stomach. As soon as she dropped her stare, Dr. Luce shifted his eyes from her red, scabbed head to the face of the mirror. The woman sitting behind the gilded frame wore a thick plaster of makeup. Her hair was cropped, dyed green, and spiked. Just as the dear queen had said, the mirror's eyes were red and baggy. What? Spat the dear queen. do you think of the new fashion?" Several ladies in waiting turned their heads at the word fashion. Dr. Luce noted a profusion of spiked pates of various hues. "My dear Queen, you always enjoy the forefront of innovation," began the doctor. "Oh, shut up, you brown-nosed bootlicker. I am tired of this mirror. I am tired of these ladies in waitings. And most of all, I am tired of you." The dear Queen yawned, slumped in her wheelchair, and studied the jewels on the rings of her fingers. "I want that cool, blonde look again. All this makeup, blah! I want clear, fresh skin. I want to be fair-haired again. I want that look. I want that face. Get it for me." She lifted her chin, or where her chin should have been, and gave her head the slightest toss. The gesture reminded him of the young woman Tirzah. He wondered who had been marrying whom. This was turning into a nightmare. He wanted Ashiel. She wanted Tirzah. Where was that brown leather? He sent him on the fastest horse. The dear Queen was not the only one losing sleep. The dark powers were his constant companions, invisible but undeniable. They swirled about him day and night, pestering him, poking him, persecuting him. Dark matter was crushing him. Dark energy was draining him. She complained of bad dreams. Maybe she would like to share his. "Tell me, doctor," her curled lip exposing folded fangs, "how are matters in my laboratory? Tell me, your dear Queen, about the progress in the experiments." Of course. He began with some hypothetical suppositions on the essence of horology. In a sentence or two, he moved to the theoretical conjectures in the study of time, using the most confusing technical terms he could muster. He was about to launch into mathematical expressions when she stopped him in mid-sentence. "It's not working, is it?" "My dear Queen, I assure you, I have my best men. Why, the entire board of scholars is focused on this problem. Just yesterday, as I was about to explain the beauty of ratios and formula in the further illustration of the solving—" "Don't get me started on those monkeys. It's not working, is it?" "Again, I assure you, my dear Queen, that with a little more time—" "Idiot, that is exactly what we do not have." The dear Queen began to uncoil. The ladies in waiting sought protective fortifications behind trunks and barrels. "Cretin," she hissed. "Darkness came to pay me a call. We enjoyed polite introductions. Then they abandoned pleasantries. They demand much. They promise much. Then they tell me the ancient fable of a king has some credibility. Lies, lies, lies. Science discarded the very notion of such a being. He is a lie. He is nothing. I am everything." Her eyes shifted back to her mirror. The image was a bit slow to respond. An observant lady in waiting poked the mirror with a pin, making it jump. The dear Queen snorted and turned back to Dr. Luce. "I nearly despaired when the darkness told me only you can do what they require." "Him?" I said. "Unbelievable," I said. "No, it's true," they said. "So do it. Get out of my sight and do their bidding." She slumped into her chair, resuming her slouch. The ladies tittered in the background before cautiously moving toward the dear Queen. She swung around, unhinged her jaw, and shot fire at their heads. Dr. Luce left. He closed the door on the smell of singed hair. 94. Her mother was alive and warm and smelled like pink roses in a clean kitchen. She had brown hair like Faith, but long, thick, and braided. Her mother looked fresh and young as she moved about the cottage in a blue dress and green apron. Faith wanted time to stop because the moment was so perfect. After a dinner of hot stew and fresh bread, Mother decided Faith needed a scrubbing. The hot bath in the wooden tub felt good. Having a mother scrub behind her ears was a new sensation. While Faith dressed, Mother brushed the little cloak clean of Kerr's enthusiastic greeting. Faith decided having a mother was a good thing. Cooking, scrubbing, hugs, and kind words. Why, a mother was a marvelous thing. No wonder everyone wanted one. Faith gazed into her mother's face. It was sweet and rosy. Pink lips and loving eyes smiled under a gentle brow. She remembered those eyes, just like hers, in the mirror. Then she had turned the mirror on the dear Queen. Faith shuddered. She wondered what had happened to the mirror. Her mother looked at her concerned, brushed the bangs aside, and gave her a kiss. Faith ordered the terrible memory to go away. She only wanted to exist in this exact moment. All would be perfect if Pa, Sonia, and Anna were there too. But right now, she had her mother and Kerr. That was more than enough. Kerr stretched out on the hearthrug, huffed a doggy sigh, and settled his great head on his outstretched legs. Ashiel, Tirzah, and Sam sat at the table by the window talking. The open window framed blue violets in a gourd against a setting sun. Mother kissed her little girl and sent her to bed. Faith happily complied. There was no place she would rather be than in her own home, in her own bed, under her own quilt. Conversation drifted from the trio. Then she realized they were talking to her. Faith, we need to leave in the morning. Manson told us to get to the mountain as quickly as possible, reminded Ashiel. I am worried about this delay of even one night, fretted Tirzah. Faith snuggled deeper into her quilt and closed her eyes. I just found my mother. I won't leave her, ever. You go. You must come, asserted Ashiel. Manson told me everything depended on getting you to the mountain. It is wonderful that you found your mother, said Tirzah, but we need to leave at dawn. Faith threw back the covers, jumped out of bed, and ran to her mother, who was sitting by the hearth. I tell you, I won't go, cried Faith. I am just a little girl. You are all big. You take the gifts to the mountain. I am not leaving my mother. The gifts without faith are useless, whispered Sam. Faith stamped her foot. I tell you, I am not leaving this cottage. They are right, whispered her mother. I can't leave you, pleaded Faith, tears filling her eyes. My sweet daughter, we are not our own. What does that mean? Her mother pulled her onto her lap and hugged her close. Do you remember dropping a seed on the hill? Faith nodded. Faith, I am among the first fruits. This is not really your home, nor was the grave mine. Our true home is yet to be revealed. We are only pilgrims. Our part is to sow the seed of hope. Are you talking about the seed in my bag? Is that how you are alive? Yes, whispered the mother. The seed is powerful. I dropped one seed on your grave. I sowed a lot of seed by my mothering tree. What happened to her? The book teaches she who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. I do wonder about your tree, Mother said with a smile and a hug. Do not worry, my sweet Faith. I will go with you in the morning. To see the mothering tree? Yes, and to the mountains. 95. The shutters of the cottage were closed, but the door left unbolted. The traveling party consisted of Faith and her mother, Tirzah and Ashiel, Kerr and Sam, and her and all her entourage. The way she moved was rather like wading. It made Faith think about walking in the river on summer afternoons. Where the water was deeper, her legs moved more slowly. That was how she moved, as if she were wading in deep water. Then there were all her birds, so many birds. They flew about her head and filled the sky. Faith loved their singing and flitting about, but this was no way to move secretly along the trail to the Nephilim. Faith remembered the great caution Pa employed on their trip to the mountains. They would hike in silence from dawn until dark. They rarely made a fire at night. Pa wanted speed and stealth. This was more like a parade. On the morning after their reunion, Faith took her mother to visit the mothering tree. Faith promised her friends it would be a brief visit. After Faith showed Sam where the sacks of grain and cellar stores were kept, mother and daughter went into the woods. The forest floor was crowded with flowers. Fresh green life scented the air. On the way, Faith told her mother about Sonia, violets, giants, Pa, and about the egg that became Anna. In mid-sentence, Faith was swept off her feet and into the air. A startled little girl looked down upon her mother, who was laughing and clapping. Faith hung between earth and heaven, cradled in the branches of her mothering tree. She was alive. Of course, the mothering tree was alive. Spring and summer witnessed leaf, flower, and fruit. But this was alive and moving, as Faith had never seen a tree move. Then Faith heard her voice. Faith, my child, sang the branches and the roots. Let us rejoice, for we are together once again. Today we leave for the mountains. I have desired to see those mountains for a long, long time. And so they went, Faith and Mother, Ashiel and Tirzah, Sam and Kerr, and the mothering tree and all her birds. Faith walked in front, holding her mother's hand. Kerr raced ahead on the trail, then rushed back, his tail wagging and his great head laughing with his tongue hanging out. Ashiel, Tirzah, and Sam walked together, alternating conversations about their village, their experiences in Tophet, and their anticipation of service to the king. No one talked of the camps. The people and the hound might not have attracted notice, but there was no hiding her. The seed had awakened Faith's mother from the grave. The seed had awakened the mothering tree from the suspended animation of a cursed creation. If the rocks can shout praise for the king, imagine the trees. It was spring, a blue sky, sun-drenched, flowers blooming everywhere, kind of spring. As she waded along the trail, her roots sometimes found a particularly sweet source of water, and her whole trunk would shudder. New leaves would pop out, and she would toss her branches like a young girl flinging back her curls. Packs and bundles would need to be picked up and hung on her branches again. No one needed to be burdened with packs on their backs. She carried them all. She talked, or rather, she sang. The sweep of the branches, the groaning of the trunk, the rumble of root moving through earth made a harmony of sound. It was like trying to understand someone with a foreign accent. Mother, however, understood her perfectly. Listen, Faith, she is singing about spring and sap and bird nests. How wonderful to have two mothers, exclaimed Faith with a skip. A smile and laugh answered, Yes, twice the love. She was a good mother to you, wasn't she, Faith? Oh, yes. She comforted me when I was alone. She sheltered me and my treasures amongst her roots. I would often sit and talk to her. To think she heard me, and I did not know it. She loves you. Mother, I think I should sow more seed, laughed Faith as she reached into her pocket. I want to scatter it about to see what happens. Maybe everything will come alive. No, Faith. A serious note darkened Mother's voice, and she stopped her daughter's hand. What seed was sown was fitting and right. It is well you did not realize the power of what you possess. There is a great harvest coming. Put the seed away. My darling, keep it safe. Soon you will need it. The mothering tree began a new song. Mother caught the tune and sang with her. Sweet and clear was their harmony on the sun-softened breeze. Sam swept Faith off her feet to ride on his shoulders. Ashiel took Tirzah by the hand and twirled her about. Kerr barked with joy. Thus they made their way along the track to the Nephilim, singing and dancing. The river of life, clear as crystal, gives life, gives life. The tree of life, leaves of healing, bears fruit, bears fruit. This King is there upon the throne, and we shall rejoice, and we shall rejoice. Thank you for listening. To hear more of the story, please come back soon, or you may purchase your own copy on Amazon. Just follow the link below. Until next time.